They coping?
They were young at the time, but that trauma is still with them. So you know, people will say, oh, well, they were so young, they don't remember. They may not remember exactly every incident, but they have an unsettlement in their spirit. Their spirit is unsettled because they had to witness what their mother, the person that they love, the person that's supposed to nurture them, and they're sitting there and it's like, my mom is supposed to nurture me. My mom is, you know, this person who's nurturing me, what's going on? You know, why is she crying all the time? Why is she, you know, and people can feel your vibe and people can feel your spirit, and your kids more so.
And then there was that period where they actually saw you fighting.
Yes,
they saw that.
Yes, they did.
You know, I don't wish it on any child. I didn't wish it on myself to even have to see those things. But I think what we see growing up is what will repeat itself in our own relationships at times. And it'll keep moving. If you don't take a stand and say enough is enough, this is not going to be my life.
And if you think about it, Pam, if you think back on your childhood, if one thinks back on their childhood, they're going to say, oh my gosh, this is just what my mom did, or this is just what my dad did, or if you were raised by your grandparents, this is just what my grandparents did. The cycle has to stop, and it has to stop with us.
Yes.
No one else has the power to stop it but us. And anyone who's watching, if you're in a relationship like that, you are strong enough to leave. You are strong enough to leave.
Yes, you are. But I'm sorry, we didn't have any numbers of any shelters or any places that we can share where you can go to. But, unless you know of something here in this area.
I do. In the Petersburg area, there's the James House. You could also call the National Domestic Violence Hotline, and I do apologize, I don't have those numbers with me.
Okay. And
they will always be there to talk to you, even if you're not ready to leave. Everybody's ready to leave at their own time. Even if you're not ready to leave, they will be there to talk to you. My counselor was so good with me. When I said I wanted to go back, she said to me, tell him that you want to go to counseling together and see what he says. He said, yeah, I'll go to counseling.
Okay.
That's what he said. She said, tell him to go to counseling on his own first. If he goes to counseling on his own first, that means that he really does want to change. He didn't go to counseling on his own.
So that's one of our red flags, right?
Right.
Cool. Do we have any more red flags, for people who are listening and watching this broadcast? Something that they can look for in the relationship. Maybe you're an abuser.
Yes.
Just because we're women and we're talking about men being the abuser, we women also abuse, especially if we've seen or experienced domestic violence growing up. We can somehow internalize and say, hey, I'm never letting that happen to me, but you may now be an abuser. And sometimes you need to find out, are you saying these things to your mate? Because the one thing I've learned, and I'm trying to do some research, and it's very hard, is that men are abused. And we don't know a statistic on it because they're men. And because of the nature of a man, he won't necessarily want to come out and say, hey, I'm being abused by a woman.
Right.
Because of, stigmatisms or made to feel weak or whatever. But I encourage men to stand up and say, hey, this has to stop.
Yes.
You do not have to become an abuser in order to stop abuse.
That's right.
That's what's so important. We need to really get that message out. You don't have to go that route.
No.
And you don't have to keep silent or feel ashamed because someone is acting out toward you. That's not your fault that someone doesn't know how to be mature in that area or to communicate effectively in that area. Someone is sick and someone needs help. That's really the best way to look at it. These people need help. And I just wanted to know, you know, even in what you've gone through, how's your heart about it?
My heart.
At least toward him.
I am still a little angry. I am. You know, that's a process that I have forgiven him. There's a difference between forgiveness
Right.
and forgetting.
Right.
And I have forgiven him, but there are some times where I do have to pray again and say, God, please.
And be more specific.
Um,
You know, well, what I'm saying is sometimes what I've learned is when something keeps reoccurring inside and I find myself feeling anger or something towards someone or a matter, then I have to be specific with God about
Right.
that one thing that's constantly turning over in my spirit.
You're right. And just to backtrack on what you were saying about domestic violence, a lot of people think that it's about anger